What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a fun video about a game called Sands of Salzaar, which I keep wanting to call Sands of Salzaar, but here we are. It's Salzaar, currently in early access on Steam. Now that said, the game is technically complete as far as the story mode goes and everything. They are still working on some multiplayer aspects, and I believe they are trying to bring a map editor to the fully released version. But beyond that, the game is pretty well playable. What is this game, before we actually jump out into the rest of it? It describes itself as an open-world ARPG, and while I guess that is technically accurate enough, I do have some caveats for that. It is open world in the sense that you can traverse what there is of the world freely. However, the ARPG part of it, while that is kind of true, I would say that while you're on the open world, you function more like a CRPG map, and instead of random encounters, you'll actually see the enemies you're running into, and then when you run into them, it brings you into a combat field where the actual ARPG portion takes place. That said, those battles can be really cool because towards the end it can be like hundreds on hundreds of enemies, because in Sands of Salzaar you pick one of several characters which, in addition to a few other things I'll get into here in just a minute, will be the leader of what essentially can become like an army for you as you take over the deserts of Salzaar in the wake of some catastrophic event that seemed to be an invasion of demons of some sort that happened in the past. Now you'll be able to recruit troops through a variety of means with your characters, but basically, eventually you're going to have like a huge war party kind of following you around and taking part in these ARPG battles, and they're pretty fun. I like that system a lot, especially for an indie game. I thought it was a unique idea, and I think they handled it pretty well. It was fun. But circling back around to the character selection part, when you select a character, you are essentially selecting a class, really, because you can like change the aesthetics of the picture of your character anyway, as well as a little bit of the 3D model that you'll actually see in the game. But in addition to that, depending on who you pick here, what class, it will actually come with a personal story for that class. So like the shaman will have its own plot quests, the spirit mancer will have its own plot quests. In addition to that, they will also have their own unique abilities because it's a class, right? And because of that, they chose to use that as a bit of a difficulty modifier for the game, because there's only one base difficulty really. But depending on the class you pick, nothing really changes in the world, so it does affect the difficulty of the game, and they do give you a recommendation on that towards the top. But I did think the personalized story for each class that you can pick was a nice touch. This is the part where I want to mention their legacy system. So you'll start the game with 60 legacy points, and basically what this allows you to do is as you play the game and you say you beat it with one character, if you want to start the game over, you can use your legacy points that you would have earned through playing the game, a variety of means. A lot of things will give you legacy points, and these will unlock extra heroes to follow you in the battle. This will unlock money for you if you want, permanent stat boosting items you can give yourself at the beginning of the game. You can actually pick up the skill trees from different classes to add to the class you picked this time, which will allow you to mix and match. Because at the start of the game, you only get your class's skills, but through the legacy system, you can get the class you pick skills, plus skills from a second class, or perhaps even a third if you played enough. So that allows you to kind of have some more fun, and the more you play it, the more you get to do, basically. So, interesting system. I'm not entirely sold on that part myself, but I mean, it's, unique at least, and it definitely does seem to fit the feel of this game pretty well. Now, as for the actual story itself, outside of the plot quests, which are personal stories for the classes, there is the main quest, and basically, you are investigating appearances of demons known as Ifrits, and for whatever reason there seems to be a big resurgence after the thing with the Black Sun happened way in the past, but now there seems to be a resurgence of them happening, and you're kind of like looking into what's happening with that, and that's pretty much the main story. I don't want to spoil it for like a checkout video obviously, but essentially the main plot is you investigating what is going on there. Now outside of questing, you're going to be running around the world map. You can find places to investigate, you can complete quests for people you'll find on the world map. When you're exploring a dungeon, shall we say, you can experience a mix of kind of CRPG random encounters where a lot of it's text-based, And then say if you run into a group of enemies, it'll take you into that ARPG map that I mentioned earlier and kind of let you combat it out ARPG style. And then it'll take you back to kind of that text-based random encounter as you move through the floors of the dungeon you're playing through. But as I mentioned, while you are exploring the world map, you will have this war party with you. And they do have a talent system as your main character levels up and you earn prestige. You will earn more talents, and these talents kind of directly affect your warband. And you can pick like leadership, trader, charisma, things like that that will kind of just help you be a better leader and give your war party bonuses in and out of the combat system. Now that brings us to probably the last thing I want to mention. So the world is broken up into like 5 distinct areas of the desert of, I guess, Salzaar. Now these distinct areas are each ruled by a sultan. These sultans have relationships with each other that are either hostile or friendly, and you can enjoy that political system as you play the game. So if you help one tribe, it might piss off one of the other tribes. And while you're out and about on the world map, if you go to one of the main towns, which is again experienced through this world map, you can actually lay siege to these towns and overthrow these sultans and install yourself as one, for instance. So there's a lot going on with this kind of like political system between these 5 nations in the desert, because you can actually join their factions as well. You just have to keep note of like who you're making friends with, because you making friends with someone will definitely piss one of the other tribes off, at least one of them. There are also factions around the desert that have nothing to do with those 5 major clans who run the actual towns that you can help, which will have various effects on relationships as well. So in addition to the main story, your class personal story, you can also kind of engage in this political rivalry throughout the Sands, and it's fun to engage with. There you go, guys. There is some information about Sands of Salzaar, which is an indie game that I personally think has a lot of potential. I've had some fun with it. It's fun. Now, should you buy it? Straight up, I'm not going to tell you what you should do with your money, frankly. I will say that full price, it is $15 for early access on Steam right now. Personally, I think it's worth $15. Not bad at all. I think there is actually a sale going on and you can pick it up for like $8 right now, I think. So something to keep in mind if you're looking for just kind of a fun game that isn't like grand in scope, as this is a little more simple and down to earth as indies tend to be, but is still nonetheless a pretty fun experience. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think it's worth the money that they are asking for it. There you go, guys. There is some information about Sands of Salzaar. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. Always trying to grow the channel. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.